Aloha aina, ano ai, velina kako. Welcome to Free Hawaii News, brought to you by the Koani Foundation, presenting Hawaiian perspectives on a broad range of topics and issues affecting the Hawaiian Islands, the Pacific, and the world. Your hosts for Free Hawaii News are Leon Kaulahau-Siu, musician, composer, diplomat, and political analyst, and Hinaleimoana Wong, Kumu filmmaker, cultural and Hawaiian language preservationist, and community leader. And now, Free Hawaii News.
Aloha mai a kākou e kia naina o ko e kipa mai nei o Honokea o Hinaleimoana Wong. Welcome to our show, Free Hawaii News. I am coming to you all directly from the land of Kauai. Kauai o mano kalani po moku o kamawai lani moku.
I'm Leon Kaulahau-Siu, and I'm speaking to you from the United Nations in Geneva. Welcome to our episode of Free Hawaii News. Last month, the Festival of Pacific Arts and Culture, or FESPAC, was held for the first time ever in the Hawaiian Islands. The theme was Ho'oulu La Hui, Regenerating Oceania. FESPAC is the world's largest celebration of indigenous Pacific Islanders. It was started in 1972 to showcase the arts and cultures of the nations of Oceania, as well as to halt the erosion of traditional practices through ongoing cultural exchange, and also to honor our traditions with an eye towards the future. Thousands of people from around the Pacific came to attend FESPAC, and even more thousands from Hawaii attended as well to welcome our guests and to provide a support and an enthusiasm for what the guests had to bring to us to share. I thought the FESPAC was an incredible event, and I would like to see this many more times over. What it did was it really provided the platform we needed for people to get together, the people of the Pacific, the people who are related but have been separated by time and distance and have kind of fell out of touch with one another. But this FESPAC brought everybody back together again. Hinaʻ, what was attending FESPAC for you?
As I reflect on the Festival of the Pacific Arts 2024, now that it has come and it has gone, although it may have now left Hawaii, we are still remaining here with memories of many, many visions of dancing, of chanting, of the heritage arts that are the demarcation of our Pacific people, anywhere from carving to weaving and to the making of traditional bark cloth, to people's drawings and other artistic expressions of who we are as a Pacific people. These memories are now etched forever in the hearts and in the minds and hopefully in the spirit of all whom came to bear witness to this most grand and illustrious event. It takes me back to being a delegate and an ambassador for Hawaii when I was 16 years old, and then later on when I was 20 years old at the 5th and the 6th festival held in Townsville, Australia, and held in Rarotonga, or the Cook Islands. I recall fondly touching the Pacific and the Pacific touching my soul, and it awakening that which continues to burn within me. It lit the pilot light to what has helped to guide and to shape my life. And with great appreciation to all the things that have contributed to being able to interface with this, I only hope that this year's FESPAC has touched the spirit, the heart, and the minds of my fellow Kanaka here in Hawaii. I thought that the festival village was a spectacular venue for people to walk from hale to hale and to be able to interact with everyone who came to share all of their skill and their knowledge, and those who were actually lodged at the festival venue.
FestPac had many different facets to it. It was a cultural exchange of the dances and the chants and the stories, and it was the physical exchange of the arts and the creations, the crafts and those type of things. And it was also an exchange of ideas. And it was a great exchange to talk about who we were and the accomplishments of our forefathers. One of the most important and most impressive part about FestPac was the events leading up to FestPac, which was a welcoming of the canoes from around the Pacific. 49 years ago, Hokulea was launched at Kualoa, and it was at a time when we had completely lost our sailing traditions and our knowledge about our forefathers who traveled this great ocean. We knew they did that, but we didn't know how. And there was no real tradition carrying on. All of our canoes were near shore canoes for fishing and for sport. But what happened with Hokulea was it triggered a revival throughout the Pacific. That is, the launch of Hokulea signaled, and the first voyage of Hokulea in 1976 signaled a recalling of who we were, what a great people we were of the Pacific throughout the ages. Our forefathers actually had settled all the islands of the Pacific 1,000 years before Christopher Columbus was born. And Christopher Columbus's great feat was finding so-called India, only he missed it by about 10,000 miles. Our forefathers were so precise that they were able to pick out tiny little islands over this vast area of the planet, 1/3 of the planet, the Pacific Ocean. And they were able to navigate not only to find these islands, but to go return to them, return home, return again, and carry on trade among the different places that they settled. So this is an amazing thing. And unfortunately, for about 700 years, this tradition disappeared. But when Hokulea was launched, it brought that all back. And so in the almost 50 years since Hokulea was launched, there was a gathering here at Kualoa on the island of Oahu, the launching place of Hokulea and the launching place of many of the ancient canoes. And Hokulea gathered together all of the offspring that came out of that initial voyage of Hokulea in 1976. And there were dozens of canoes, voyaging canoes, sailing canoes, inter-island sailing canoes, near-shore sailing canoes, and of course, thousands and thousands of people celebrating. Hokulea alone triggered an incredible revival of the Pacific Islands and the nations in the Pacific, and the pride and the accomplishments of the Pacific Islands. So Hokulea is a significant player in all this, and was a great way to launch FestPac. And then during FestPac, there were all of these other aspects to it. The workshops were excellent. We talked about not only who we were, but about who we are now and where we're going in the future. Much was said about, and in a very enthusiastic and in a very positive light, about where we can go in the Pacific way, using the Pacific way, and using this culture of ours and this traditions of ours to reinforce and to launch out into a whole new time, just like the ancient canoes launched into exploration. we can launch into a whole new area of the future of the Pacific.
This is truly something that would help say to our Kanaka here that this is where we are from. Colonization has taught Kanaka. It has taught my fellow Hawaiians that we have always been pushed to another people whom we're not immediately genealogically connected to. And finally, we had an opportunity for my fellow Kanaka to see the people of Tonga, Samoa, Tahiti, Tuvalu, Niue, Uvea, Futuna, Rarotonga, Rapanui, and all of the other islands that came.
I, for one, was strongly and heavily impacted by seeing the Pacific family gather together to share and to fellowship and to be part of one another and to learn from one another and to uplift one another. And I believe that many, many people who attended, I would say all the people who attended were similarly impacted, that this was a life-changing and life reassuring experience for many of our Pacific Islanders.
While Hawaiians have always felt that we were special, we are, but we as Kanaka are part of a larger family. That's one of the main takeaways that I want to impress upon my fellow Kanaka. And that is that we have ancestral connections. We are part of the larger genealogy of the Pacific. In fact, there's a term that our elders used to deploy when speaking about the Pacific Ocean, and it was called the Aina Moana. The Aina Moana is the term that you'll find in historical context and in newspapers of former times where our people were all fluent speakers of our language. We are accustomed to hearing Kamoana nui a Kanaloa and Kamoana nui a Kea, or Moana nui a Kea, but an older term or an older way to refer to it is Aina Moana, and that means it is actually the landmass that's actually an ocean. And the ocean doesn't divide us, the ocean connects us. The ocean is our home that we are entrusted to be not only stewards of, but that we are proud to represent. And we reflect, well, hopefully we should continue to reflect in the generations to come, that we are a Pacific people above and beyond.
We'll never go back again to how we were. That is, we never will be separated again. That we have now taken such a step of embracing one another and accepting one another and living with one another over that festival days, that we really are bonded as a family. So the main takeaway is that we have bonded as a family, and secondly, that we have a very optimistic view toward the future, and that many of the challenges that face us, climate change, sea level rise, and seabed mining, all of these issues, demilitarization, all these issues we can address as a people of the Pacific, and we are of the same mind as far as where we want to go and how we want to live in the future, what kind of ocean we want, what kind of planet we want. So the main takeaway is that we have reached a new plateau of cooperation and of oneness and of aloha.
Last month, Hawaii hosted FestPac, the Festival of Pacific Arts and Culture, which is the largest gathering of the peoples of Oceania to celebrate our cultures and connections. But immediately upon the heels of that festival, Hawaii also started hosting RIMPAC, a multinational military exercise involving 29 nations and more than 25,000 military personnel from throughout the world, which will be participating in military war games throughout Hawaii until early next month. RIMPAC, which enters its 29th year, is the largest maritime military exercise in the world. Over the years, opposition to RIMPAC has grown significantly due to the fact that foreign military powers, which includes the US, use Hawaii to practice war games that use live gunnery fire, firing missiles, sinking decommissioned naval ships, undersea warfare, and air defense exercises and other dangerous activities. For more on why opposition to RIMPAC keeps growing, we go now to Maui, where Aloha Aina activist Trinette Furtado is standing by. Aloha, Trinette.
Aloha mai, Hina. It's so wonderful to see you and to be with you.
Hawaii just finished hosting people from the various nations of Oceania for FestPac, which showcases our love for our lands as well as our desire to protect them from harm. Doesn't RIMPAC, with foreign militaries coming here to explode bombs and firing missiles while practicing their war games, fly in the face of that?
RIMPAC, right after FestPac, is a slap in the face. It's as if FestPac were nothing more than a spectacle and tourism income opportunity. Hawaii has allowed RIMPAC exercises since 1971, when only 5 nations participated and it was held just once a year. Now it happens twice a year, and the upcoming exercises are going to have approximately 29 nations with 40 surface ships, 3 submarines, 14 national land forces, over 150 aircraft, and more than 25,000 personnel scheduled to be here in and around the islands. The exercise includes forces from Australia, Belgium, Brazil, Brunei, Canada, Chile, Colombia, Denmark, Ecuador, France, Germany, India, Indonesia, Israel, Italy, Japan, Malaysia, Mexico, Netherlands, New Zealand, Peru, the Republic of Korea, the Republic of the Philippines, Singapore, Sri Lanka, Thailand, Tonga, the United Kingdom, and the United States. And, why would Hawaii allow this to occur? I don't think it's Hawaii per se, but the fake state government that currently administers Hawaii, for lack of a better word. I think it's because the large military presence that we already have here is spread out so much through these islands. People are inured to it. Maybe it's because China is seen as a threat and the US's preeminent pacing challenge. And the DoD just got approved for $9.1 billion that they're going to split into targeted investments, of which RIMPAC is one of the recipients of that money, including experimentation, strengthened presence, deterrence, exercises. So, perhaps the fake state government hopes there will be an infusion of more federal monies or money into the economy via spending by RIMPAC participants.
Why and how would Hawaii allow foreign military forces to come to Hawaii for the express purpose of activities that pollute our environment with military waste and destroy our aina, our sacred land?
Money talks. And Hawaii seems to want, not Hawaii, but the fake state government of Hawaii seems to want more federal monies. But beyond that, we have to ask ourselves why other nations are quick to join these exercises to support the US. Why aren't they held in kai surrounding other nations? Because that list that I had shared of all the nations that are going to be taking part of the exercises coming up, some of those nations know what it's like to have colonial presence there. They know what it's like for their indigenous folks to have to fight for not just equality, but equanimity. And so the only thing I can think about is money.
Wouldn't this be a perfect example of colonialism? Large military powers descending on a much smaller place like Hawaii to use as practice to blow things up, pollute areas, and raise military tensions and then leave?
This is very much a clear example of colonialism, as well as intentional ignorance. And I say intentional ignorance of those other participating nations, because many of them know the history of this place and the continued belligerent occupation of the United States. And again, I ask, why don't they hold these exercises near their homes in their nations? Because they know that it brings more harm than good. They're aware of the numerous negative impacts these exercises would have on their ocean and their land.
Isn't RIMPAC at odds with the fact that the Kingdom of Hawaii has always been a neutral nation?
It isn't at odds when you consider that the US has denied the existence of the Kingdom of Hawaii since it illegally overthrew our mo'i ali'i and installed a puppet regime until a crooked plebiscite vote, be a part of the US, be a part of the US, or be a part of the US, made statehood the only choice, a choice backed by those desiring to have the American dream as we began to see an exodus from plantations. It isn't at odds when you consider that the US has never cared about the political stance of the Kingdom of Hawaii. It isn't something that furthers the narrative of US occupation or capitalism.
What effect does RIMPAC have on putting a military target on the backs of Hawaii's residents?
A lot of the countries now will know key points of entry where our water systems are, where our wastewater systems are. Not saying that they could use that against us, but it does concern me that we have foreign military presence on Hawaiian land at the invitation of an occupying and belligerent force to create and condone violence.
What kinds of damage does RIMPAC do to our land, our water, and our other natural resources?
Retired ships, other military vehicles, large pieces of equipment are towed out into the ocean for target practice. Those then are able to leach toxic chemicals, PCBs, into the ocean while sinking as they are hit over and over with missiles and torpedoes. Amphibious watercraft coming on shore damage our shorelines, our reefs, habitat for native species. And our species aren't quick to recover. Our limu aren't quick to recover from those kinds of damage. Sonar and other underwater exercises disrupt normal feeding and traveling cycles and paths of our kohola, our whales, and nai'a, our dolphins, which may cause some of the beaching episodes and medical issues some researchers have seen in our aquatic wildlife. And there are many, many more impacts on our groundwater, on our aquifers that occur that we're not able to test for to begin with, nor maintain and monitor because of the stifling stranglehold that the military has over those lands that they lease for $1 a year, and over data that should be shared with our community so we know the exact and real impacts of their presence here in our islands.
What could you tell us about opposition in Hawaii to RIMPAC?
Hawaii groups continue to voice opposition through collaboration and organization, but these things are difficult across our islands, and especially when many of us can only get to another island by flying. Demonstrations, visits to legislators that might help us become difficult. And so the opposition primarily falls on small groups of folks on Oahu. What we need is capacity. Folks seeing the true impacts economically, physically, environmentally, culturally, it can bring greater awareness of the hewa, of the wrong that this program is. That awareness can bring change, and that change can not only help people rise, but it can help us help others so that we can collaborate. So if it's transportation, that's the issue, we can bring people over or take people to areas where we can be most meaningful and have the most impact. We have a large group of people from all walks of life and all professions and all economic demographics that oppose RIMPAC.
Stopping 29 foreign nations from coming to Hawaii for war games seems like a David versus Goliath situation. what can we do and what can be done?
Yes, it does seem like a David versus Goliath situation. Activating folks in those other countries that oppose RIMPAC, we we should encourage them to demand that their countries not support RIMPAC participants. That's one way to do it. Petitions to the UN could perhaps place sanctions or remove any kind of international funding from anything supporting these exercises here. That could be another way.
What can those of us who live in Hawaii do to protect our islands from things like RIMPAC?
Short from going all out with physical protection of areas involved, we can connect, as I said earlier, with others who are staging events, stage events ourselves, connect so that we can do these things together, host spaces where education can happen, where information is shared, where people can write letters, where they can visit legislator offices. There's phone numbers they can call. They are emboldened and empowered to introduce legislation within this fake state to curb or stop it. And I encourage that because we have to work in those systems now. We have that framework, and we're constantly being told the only way to make headway is to go through that framework. And so the way we can do that is, again, by capacity, by having this upswelling of folks that know what it is, that know their rights underneath this fake state system, that understand how to write to folks to make changes that we need to make. We can make it a global issue that hits social media, educates everyone to take action wherever they are, and encourages folks to also put the pressure on legislators and key folks that can move things and change things for us. We can pursue diversified economies so that any dependence on US federal funds for the military is eliminated or reduced. We can continue to educate each other on the harmful effects of these exercises on our ocean, on our fisheries, our limu, our aina, our land, and ultimately our neighborhoods, our water supply, like with Red Hill, and the quality of our soil for growing more food.
No laila, o ke aloha nui no ia oi Trinette. Mahalo a nui no ka au mauhana nui. Mahalo a nui no ka hoʻokupaʻa. Mahalo.
Last year, in 2023, the State of Hawaii Community Development Authority approved the environmental proposal of the Honokea Surf Village, a 7 million gallon surfing wave pool, along with cabins, restaurants, and bungalows. This would have been the second wave pool in the Ewa area of Oahu, less than 2 miles from the shoreline, where you can surf for free, and also 2 miles from the already existing Waikai wave pool. On May 28th of this year, a coalition of Kanaka Maui, or Native Hawaiians, and Ewa residents, Nakia'i o Waiha, challenged the environmental assessment of this new wave pool and won their case before the Oahu Environmental Court, which ruled the environmental assessment for the Honokea Surf Village to be invalid and issued an injunction against continuing development. To tell us more about this very significant victory, we go now to Oahu, where Nakia'i o Waiha activist Tara Rojas is standing by. Aloha, Tara.
Aloha, Leon. Thank you for having me here on Free Hawaii News.
Congratulations, Tara, on this important victory. What was it like for you, for all of you?
It was beautiful as Pono prevailed. We stand and protect for the love that Kupuna had and have for us and for this place, and that we have for our keiki and their keiki and the next 7 generations and beyond.
You were a co-plaintiff in this court case, yes? Why did you choose to get involved?
Yes, I was a co-plaintiff in this case, and I chose to get involved because we see what is happening on all islands and in every area. And we need to stand for our aina, our vai, the limu, the kai, and iwi, because it's evident that if we do not stand and become their voice, just this continued desecration and contamination of all that I have mentioned will continue. We're the voices for the Aina and the Vai that have been crying out since 1893. And so it's necessary for all of us to act and to stand for where we live, which is beautiful Hawaii.
Isn't Oahu in the middle of a water and energy crisis right now?
Yes, we are in a water and energy crisis right now. And, we cannot afford to allocate precious water resources just for the sake of commerce and recreation. This is unsustainable and short-sighted.
What do you feel this area should actually be used for instead of another surf park?
The area definitely needs to be protected and preserved first and foremost. There are too many beautiful historical and culturally sensitive things in this area to develop anything. We're in Hawaii. Development does not need to continue to happen. We need to protect and preserve what makes Hawaii, Hawaii.
Can this victory be used as a template for others throughout Hawaii that want to step forward to help protect the land and natural resources where they live?
Absolutely. This win was never just for us. It was for the entire island of Oahu that would be depleted of water and land that Kanaka and Kanaka Maoli desperately need. So for us regular people to take on a multi-million-dollar project and the state and win, we hope that others will continue to ku'e in their own backyards.
Doesn't this victory show that everyday residents in Hawaii can actually make a difference, make an impact?
Yes, the power of one and also the power of community for pono is what makes all the difference.
What advice would you give to others who have been thinking about taking a stand for something they feel is important to them?
The time is now for each one of us here in Hawaii and beyond to take a stand for our land, our water, our air, and everything that is special and important to us and to the ecosystem. We only have one life, we only have one planet, and thus we all need to join one by one to make this world a better place for our current and future generations to come.
Mahalo nui, Tara, for your Manaʻo, mahalo for your stand, and mahalo for your actions.
The Grand Wailea on Maui is in the news once again due to their plans to expand their resort, which will disturb iwi kupuna, or sacred Hawaiian burials. In fact, iwi kupuna protection groups say that over the past 35 years, more than 350 burials have been found, removed, or displaced on the luxury hotel site. Now, those same iwi protection groups are pushing back on the hotel's plans to add 137 new rooms and swimming pool. The iwi protection groups are asking the Maui Planning Commission to deny the permit. For more details, we go now to Maui, where Claire Apana of Mālama Kakanilua is standing by. Aloha, Claire.
Hina, it's so good to see you again.
How long have you and Mālama Kakanilua been fighting to protect the iwi kupuna, the sacred Hawaiian burials at the Grand Wailea Resort?
Mālama Kakanilua has been with this particular item at the Planning Commission, which is the expansion of the Grand Wailea Hotel Resort. And we have two other interveners, Ho'oponopono o Makena and the Pele Defense Fund. So in total, it is 3 Kanaka organizations who are interveners. And this happened in 2018. We started 2019. We became interveners.
What, in your understanding, is the importance of iwi kupuna to Kanaka Maoli or to Hawaiians?
The importance of iwi kupuna to Kanaka Maoli is so deep, and we really feel that it's getting forgotten, that this is the greatest kuleana that any Kanaka can have, to Mālama our iwi kupuna, because Our iwi kupuna are us. They become part of the aina. The aina is us. We are the aina. And this is what makes this place, our home for Kanaka Maoli, so special. And when we forget where we came from and our kupuna, we forget the connection that we have with them, I believe that we are really lost as people.
Would you say that the proposed activity there is no different than going to a graveyard or cemetery with a shovel and digging up some living person's relatives? Yes?
It is so similar, except that Kanaka Maoli have in their tradition, this is a forever resting place. This is a forever resting place, not to be disturbed. It is not only in our culture, it is really one of the foundations of who we are.
Claire, what do you think it's going to take for Kanaka Maoli, for our people, to be able to protect the bones of our ancestors?
The burials issue come back to Kanaka Maoli. It has to come back to our own beliefs, our own rights to practice our culture, and to the people who really care to protect and care for these burials.
Some people say that protecting our ancient burials is actually a part of our DNA. What would you say in response to this?
I would definitely agree with that. I believe that it's within our own person, our DNA, as you might say, because this was not such a concern for me, but when presented with the desecration of a burial ground a block away from my house, it woke up something in me that was always there. And I know that that is part of me and part of our people. This is what we do. We protect our iwi kupuna. We protect our burials.
If you could ask the people who do not live on Maui to help, what would you ask the people?
You can join in by even watching them, watching how these government agencies just make it possible to desecrate our burials and move them out of the way so we can have more hotels, more third and fourth luxury homes. It is really a horrendous situation.
No laila, o ke aloha nui me ka mahalo anui ia oe Claire Apana. Mahalo anui no kau mauhana nui me kau hoʻokupaʻa ana I keia awamo kuleana ana. No leila mahalo anui ia oe Claire, aloha.
The reason I'm in Geneva is because we are trying to sort out and show the United Nations that they actually made two major mistakes. First of all, they accepted Hawaii as a non-self-governing territory when we already had been a sovereign country for 100 years. The United States carefully watched the decolonization process unfold, and they began to become alarmed because many of the countries started to use that process, and more countries were becoming decolonized. The United States became alarmed because what if Hawaii was to actually have a decolonization referendum, and what if they picked independence? So what they decided to do was, rather than chance Hawaii having an open discussion about decolonizing and having an open referendum, they decided to fix an election. That is, they announced in Hawaii that Hawaii was going to have a referendum, or what they called a plebiscite, for statehood. And when they conducted that plebiscite, first of all, they hyped it up so that everybody was all for statehood, and then they held the referendum. There was no discussion whatsoever about the possibility of being independent or any other kind of arrangement that could have been chosen. in a true self-determination process. So the United States held a referendum in 1959 called the statehood plebiscite. And in that, they fixed that plebiscite as well. They only put one question on the ballot. And then they only allowed United States citizens to vote. So both of those restrictions actually disqualifies the action or the event as a legitimate referendum. But the United States did so anyway. And they did the same in Alaska, by the way. And then at the end of that, they collected the results, and lo and behold, they got this huge response for statehood. It was the only question on the ballot, and it was highly hyped to get people to vote for it. And only US citizens could vote. So, of course, it would be highly, there would be a great majority voting for statehood. They then took that and that report and reported to the United Nations that this plebiscite had taken place, and the people of Hawaii had freely chosen to become part of the United States as a state of the United States. The United Nations did not bother to check on the facts, on how the election was conducted and who voted. And they simply rubber stamped the United States report and said, good, that issue is settled, that the status of the Hawaiian Islands is now that the Hawaiian Islands are a part of the United States as a state of the United States. And that is where we are stuck. Because the United Nations made that determination that Hawaii is part of the United States, we are actually stuck in that position. Not only does the United Nations hold that position, but all the countries that belong to the United Nations also hold that position. So, but the way that we can get that undone is to inform the people at the United Nations and the countries of the United Nations of what actually happened, and work to get the United Nations General Assembly to rescind the resolution that they passed in error in 1959. And so that is what I'm doing in Geneva. I'm here to present our case. Now, I mentioned there are two places, two United Nations. There's the one in Geneva where I'm often at. I'm there 4 times a year at least. And then there's the United Nations in New York, where the political issues are discussed. In Geneva, it's the human rights issues. And that is the more receptive area in which we can begin to change the narrative that the United States had provided for the United Nations all these years. And that's what we've been doing for a number of years, changing the narrative so that the people, the diplomats, and the United Nations itself has become aware now that there is a dispute. There is a problem with the United States' claim that they have dominion over the Hawaiian Islands. And not only is there a dispute, but that dispute rests with the United Nations itself. Or the solution for that dispute rests with the United Nations. Now, in New York, like I said, more of the political questions are debated there. So we also have a strong presence in New York. I go to New York even more often than I go to Geneva, and I have an office that I work out of in New York in order to communicate with the delegates from the different international communities there at the United Nations about our situation. And it is there that the General Assembly meets. And it is there that the General Assembly actually holds the key to reversing what they did in 1959. So we're pursuing that course. I don't want to get into much more detail about that, but this is why we're at the United Nations. We're there to ask the United Nations and its member countries to to bring one of their prominent members, the United States, into compliance with international law by releasing Hawaii and releasing their claim to Hawaii. So we are there to overturn to assist the United Nations itself to overturn its decision that it made in 1959 that consigned Hawaii and Alaska to the United States. So we are getting very close to making a major breakthrough. So stay tuned. I will keep you abreast about what's going on. Aloha from Geneva.
This is my thought. This is my reflection. And I'd like to share with you all today a bit about my time, the privilege and the honor that I have been given to have served the Honorable Frederica Lupe'uluiwa Patafehiolapaha Tuita from the Kingdom of Tonga. In order for me to properly unpack for the next few moments, I should start by giving a little bit of background, because I'm not sure if people understand my own personal background and how it is that I have come to know what to do. In my own life, my own upbringing, on my Hawaiian side, my mother's mom, having been one of the primary people to raise me, I now, later on in years, I realized that I was raised not as a punahele, but as a pailani. And some people will look down upon this term pailani because it literally means held up to the heavens. And being held up to the heavens is much akin to how an ali'i, a person of rank, is treated. Am I saying that I am ali'i rank? No, I'm not trying to say that, but I am saying that as I reflect on my childhood, my grandmother prepared me to understand the life that ali'i folk live because of how she treated me. I was required to conduct myself and behave, I'd say, much like those of nobility. And it doesn't make me better than anybody else, but it certainly does give me insight when I think to the experiences that my life has had in my adult life. On my father's side, I learned how to serve, and I was relied upon for everything. So on my mother's side, I was required to learn everything, and I was treated as royalty is treated. But on my father's side, in growing up under that grandmother, I was her hands and feet, and I was her everything. So it's not to say that other family members, siblings, or cousins or my aunt were not present, but I was someone who lived in the house, and therefore I was the one to be subservient to my grandmother's every needs. And so in the late 90s, when I was first introduced to Frederica's family, I had a chance to build a relationship with them. And, over the years, it's been wonderful to come of age in the world and to experience life. And now when I sit with Honorable Frederica or with her sister Lupe Pau'u, whom I have had the wonderful opportunity to also get to know, even the sister between them, Fanetupo Vava'u, all of these honorable women of the royal family. And even their mother, Princess Pilolevu, it has been an honor to be someone of Hawaii, but also to be who I am and understand culture. And if I understand culture, although Tongans do not impose the kana vai, they don't impose the restrictions and the tapu that are associated with being around nobility and how one has to conduct themselves. I know that it is the appropriate way to treat them because Hawaii is also of the same Pacific Island culture where we have our ali'i lineages. And if our mo'i and if our other ali'i were alive today, we Kanaka would be subject to the same imposition of rules and appropriate etiquette and conduct, manner and demeanor, and we would be required to either prostrate or to ensure that we lower our head and keep it below the head of the ali'i, and to bow and kuno before them. We would be required to do many things that most people in Hawaii, most Kanaka in modern times don't understand and don't have the ability to connect with. The arrival of Honorable Frederica and the delegation from Tonga for the Festival of Pacific Arts 2024 here in Hawaii then availed itself as perfect opportunity for me to give a different level of ho'okipa. And ho'okipa not only means to welcome, but ho'okipa, it conveys an understanding that when you are hosting someone or when you host people, that there are requirements of us if we truly understand from a Kanaka level, what does ho'okipa mean? Ho'okipa at a surface level to some might mean that, well, just make sure that they have something to eat or make sure that they get transported from place to place or make sure that they have some place to sleep. Ho'okipa to me, at the level that I understand it, not only from my own upbringing, but from my background and my training, having been a former ambassador and delegate of Hawaii to the South Pacific in former festivals, ho'okipa, to host someone means that they can and should want for nothing. It means that whatever it is they desire, at any point in time where they are hungry, they are given our very best, and they are given our best level of food accommodation, travel. It means that everything is there for them to make them not just be provided for, but to be absolutely comfortable and to make their visit so enjoyable that every moment they will always recall the beauty of moments spent, whether they were interacting in and amongst themselves, delegations who came from whichever islands were present, or whether they were interacting with each other, delegation to delegation, and the family reunion of the Pacific. That's what ho'okipa means to me. And so in thinking about how could I avail myself and be of service, given the opportunity to sit at Honorable Frederica's feet and to fan her and keep her comfortable, that level of ho'okipa is particular to nobility. And my history, my connectivity, and my background in a Tongan community, I have a Tongan mom and I have a Ni'ihau mom. And to be a keiki ho'okama, somewhat akin to the word hanai. Hanai means to adopt. Well, ho'okama means to take in, to care for, and to in similar ways bring somebody into one's family and to become a part of that family. So I am a keiki ho'okama of Ni'ihau and a keiki ho'okama of Tonga. And that's how I'm able to speak my language. And I'm also able to speak Tongan. I can also manage in Samoan and in Tahitian too, if needed. I can go anywhere in the Polynesian islands of of the Pacific region and get along. And over a short amount of time, I will be able to either speak that dialect or at least hear it and know exactly what they're saying. So, being able to honor the relationships forged with Tonga and to this particular branch of the royal family, it was a great honor to avail myself to whatever she needed. Being a proper host means that anything and everything that is wanted or desired is our objective. So I am absolutely grateful for the time that I got to spend. And of course, it allowed me to go around to some of the events that were either hosting or were being held because of its connectivity to the festival. And so wherever Honorable Frederica went, most of the time I was there too. So I'm very grateful.
Mahalo for joining us for this episode of Free Hawaii News. It's been our pleasure to bring it to you, and we mahalo all of our guests who were on this show who shared their manaʻo and their aloha for these important issues. From Geneva, the United Nations in Geneva, aloha.
No laila e kia naina o ko kākou launa ane ke yahi. Mahalo anu I ke kipa ana mai o Honokea o Hinaleimoana, ke haʻawi nei I koʻu leo mahalo anu ia o kou. Mahalo keia hui ana, a hui hou, aloha.
We hope you enjoyed this month's episode of Free Hawaii News. Mahalo for watching. There's a new show every month, so this program will air several more times this month. You can view it anytime on Olelo's on-demand site or on YouTube. See you next time. Ahui ho, aloha aina.
The Free Hawaii Broadcasting Network.